Okay, so in this section, we're just going to cover what comes after the transition. Now, in this case, in the last video, we ended it on with going through the transition like that, and after the transition goes through, we remove everything from the scene. In this case, it's the truck and the score. So we remove that after the transition goes through. So you can see that the taco is ending right here. So the taco truck, I'm sorry. So the taco truck is right here. You can see where it ends. So after that, it ends and it goes away. So does the score counter. So they're right here. Now we just need to make the scene after the transition goes through. So in this case, the game over scene. So I'm just gonna leave this marking on. So you can do that by going to this small button right here underneath the canvas and just selecting title slash action save. So, or you can just press on the apostrophe key on your keyboard. So now I'm just going to select the text tool, the horizontal type tool in your tool panel, and I'm going to press here and write game over. Okay. So now I already have the font selected, the Hydrophilia Ice, so make sure to download that from Blackboard, or you can download that from any website. Just search for it on Google and you can download that and make sure it's installed on your system. Now the font is actually perfect, so 167, so make sure it's on that. And if you don't have the character panel, you can always go to Window and make sure that's ticked on. And the font is 167, so that's good. I'm going to make sure that it's centered in the right, that's centered on the composition. So in this case, it's right here. So I'm just going to hold click and hold shift and then drag that down towards here. So to make room for another element on top of it. So in this case, I don't want the game over font to be red. I want it to be all white. So I'm gonna make sure it's all white like that. And then I'm going to add the taco. So in this case, I go back to project. And I have the taco right here. So I'm going to drag that instance onto my canvas. So it's going to be right over the game over text. So I'm going to center it to make sure that it's centered in the center of the composition. I'm gonna hold click, hold shift and drag up like this. So now I have it right on top of it. I'm actually going to increase distance between the two just for design purposes. Now the effect is not being applied to them. That's because they're above the screen effects, which is the adjustment layer containing all of the effects of our screen. So I'm just going to click and then shift click and select the other one and drag them down the screen effects right here. So you can see that the design changes. So that's good. Now I'm just going to add a few elements to game over to make it pop more, to make it more 3D. So you can do that easily by a few tricks. The first one I like to use is just pressing on the text right here, pressing Ctrl D over it, so I duplicate it, and then make sure that Game Over 2 is right underneath the first Game Over. So now I have two text layers. And I'm gonna press P on Game Over 2 on the keyboard, so that opens up the position panel. So now I can just drag that down a little bit, okay, just a small bit. And now you can't see it, but if I just click on the color palette right here and I make sure it's all red, you can see that it becomes a 3D text font thing. So it's always good to do that. You add some personality to your text, so you made it 3D. Okay, so it's always good to do that. Now you can do one more thing to make it look better. You go to Effects, Controls, Game Over 2, and then in Effects and Presets, I'm just going to search for something called Gradient Ramp. So Gradient Ramp is right underneath Generate, you can see that. Now, if you're using later versions of Adobe After Effects, you might not have Gradient Ramp. So make sure to search for ramp in the case where you don't have Gradient Ramp. Maybe that would help you. Okay, so they probably changed the name in later versions. I'm using the Adobe CC 2015, so it's a pretty outdated version. So I'm going to drag the gradient ramp and place it right here, or you can just place it on Game Over 2. It's the same thing. Actually, yeah. So yeah, Game Over 2. That's where we want it to go. Now you have the start of ramp and the end of ramp. So this is where the spectrum of your gradients is going to be, because the gradient goes from one color to the other. As you can see here, it goes from black to pure white, and this is where it starts and this is where it ends. So we kind of have to confine these colors on game over, if that makes any sense. So I'm just going to drag the start ramp, the second parameter. As you can see, you can see the dot going up and down. So I'm just going to place it right on top of game over right here, and I'm going to drag the end ramp, going to place it right underneath game over. So I kind of sandwiched the game over between the two. So now I confine the spectrum, the gradient, to game over only and not the entire scene. So in this case, start color, I want to go to the eyedropper tool right here. I want to select this yellow thing right here. Okay, so I'm gonna press OK. So there you go, it changed a little bit. Now I'm going to the end one. I'm going to select this. I'm going to turn off preview because it's not rendering well. So I'm just going to press there, press the eyedropper tool and select the red one. And I'm gonna press OK. So you can see that it changed like this. Now, this is a good, I don't want to place any more effects on it because it's just become cramped unnecessarily. So this is good. Now, we just want to animate this up, okay? So to do that, instead of just going, actually before we animate that, we need to add an effect on game over 1 and 2, okay? So an effect is, I want to animate the game over to be typed out, okay? So this is a good design, but it's not good because it flashes directly. So I don't want game over to flash directly. I want it to be typed out. But before we do that, you can see that if I go back in time, that game over is present in all the scenes. So I have to fix that. To fix that, I need to clip the videos, the timeline of the game overs and the taco to the last scene. So on the playhead, this is where I want my scene to be. So all I have to do is just select game over and game over 2 and the taco. So game over 2 and the taco, and I'm gonna press on the right curly bracket on my, the left curly bracket right next to the enter on my keyboard. So if I press that, it's a shortcut that kind of clips them, it cuts them to where my playhead is. So in this case, it's right here. So everything behind it, behind these timelines, game over and the taco truck won't appear. So I have them here. And so there you go. This is where they start appearing. Now I have to animate them. I want to animate a text animation. Okay, so this is where the game over appears. Now I need to create an effect that mimics like it's being typed out, like the text is being typed out. This is done by something called decoder. Okay, so decoder fade in. Now I want to put decoder fade in on both game over 2 and game over. So decoder fade in, I'm gonna drag that to game over 2 and to game over 1 right here. So now they appear that they're missing, but they're not. They're actually being typed out like that. Now this is animated by After Effects directly. So if you just press on both of them, so select one, shift and select the other one, and press U on the keyboard, that opens everything that's being animated in these two. So you have start, and you can see that they go from 0 to 100, and once they reach 100, the text is typed out now. So I can get a sense of what's happening here. So to make that faster, intuitively, I'd have to push the keyframe like that, right next to each other. So now they get typed out faster, but I have to make sure that these two are adjacent, right next to each other. So one is not typed out faster than the other. So let's check both. Let's check now what happens. So if that's the speed we want. So now it's just loading, buffering. That's why it was choppy. So perfect. That's the speed that we want. That's perfect. Now after the speed is done, after the text has been typed out completely, I want to push the taco and the game over up and make them smaller. Okay, so it's just good design because I want to write down right underneath them the scores with the corresponding initials and the positions. So I want to write the entire list of people that played the game right underneath game over. So what I want to do is after that I'm gonna wait for 5 frames. So let's say 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I push 5 frames, and now I want to animate them up. So instead of just going game over 2 and then game over 1 and then taco animating them one by one, uh, it's a lengthy process. So it's good to just link them both game over 1 and game over 2 to taco. So I can panel them. So I'm gonna press on game over 2, hold shift and press on game over 1, and I can just go to parent right here and select taco.ai 3. So in this case it's the third layer. I select that. So now they're parented to taco.ai. So I can just move with the selection tool, just press on taco right here, and I can move them. I can move all of them because they're parented with the taco. So now I can move the taco up so they move with it. Okay, so I can just place them none now, and I can do one thing is that I can select both of them, and I can use the whiplash right here. So I can just get the whiplash in this case here, and just take it over to taco.ai. So now they're both parented to taco.ai. So you can do them in both ways. This is faster than this one. Okay, so now all I have to do is just animate taco. So if I go to taco and I press P on the keyboard, that opens up the position, and I hold shift and press S, that opens up the scale. So now we have the position and scale open right here. So I'm gonna select the taco, and I'm going to animate both of them. So I'm just going to press the stopwatch on both of them. I want to jump 10 frames forward. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's see if this speed is good. The scale is going to be 50 now, so I'm gonna reduce it in half, and then I'm going to push the taco and the score up till here. And now let's see the animation if the speed is good enough. Now I'm rendering in full, that's why it's taking a long time. So let's put this in half. Okay, perfect. 10 frames are enough. You can make it longer if you by just pushing these out, pushing the keyframes out, or you can make it faster by pushing them in towards each other. Okay, so this is basically it. Now in the next video you will learn how to create the high score panel. Okay, so and make sure to watch the previous video to know how we got here. Okay, so thank you.